Modular synthesizers. What are they, where do they come from, and why are they a hype? Unless you've been living underneath a rock these past few years, you've probably heard of modular synthesizers. In case you haven't, I'll go through the basics and tell you why they are great for techno production and music production in general. Hi, this is Frederick from the techno label Detroit, Berlin. As a prelude to my upcoming series, I'll introduce you and tell you all about the benefits of modular synths. Towards the end of this episode, I'll show you a few small setups you can put together for a reasonable price. If you want to be notified when upcoming videos get published, please subscribe and hit the bell button. I got into modular synthesizers years before I got back into techno production. For a long time I tried to avoid the money pit a modular system can be. But when I did make the leap, I couldn't have been happier with the possibilities my, at the time, very small and affordable system gave me. A little bit of history. What are modular synthesizers? Modular synthesizers are synthesizers composed of separate modules of different functions. The modules can be connected together with patch cords, a matrix patching system, or switches by the user to create a patch. The output voltages from the modules may function as audio signals, control voltages, or as timing conditions. Typical modules are oscillators, filters, amplifiers, and envelope generators. Where do modulars come from? The earliest commercial modular synthesizers were developed in parallel by Bob Moog and Don Buchla in 1963. The synthesizer both broadened the spectrum and greatly eased the creation of electronic music, which before was made via tape slicing. The Japanese company Roland released their System 100 in 1975. Why are modular synths a hype? 10 years ago they were less known. You could compare it with the vinyl hype. When these synths like the Mini Moog were released, many people saw the benefits of a smaller, more affordable synth, and the modulars started a decline. Synths got cheaper and cheaper, and the sounds you could get out of these small boxes were mind-blowing. In the modular world, this would mean you would need a whole room of modules to accomplish the same. Though all this time from 1977 on, a German company called Doepfer would still be making and selling modules and DIY kits. They are best known for their affordable modules and for popularizing the Euro-rack format, which is a modular size of 3 rack units high, compared to the 5 rack units Moog format or the 4 rack units Buchla format. In 1992, Doepfer released an analog sequencer developed in cooperation with the famous German band Kraftwerk. This Eurorack format has always been rather popular amongst techno producers and the experimental scene. My guess is that with the surge of techno as a popular genre and well-known artists performing live with modular synths, Surgeon, Anselm, Karen, and more recently Richie Houghton, in conjunction with more indie companies developing all these exotic modules, plus the diverse amount of information and tutorials online, this all led to a rise in interest and accessibility for the common bedroom producer. I got into modular synths because I was tired of hauling a crap load of power adapters and power bricks along and liked the idea of having everything together in one case. The first modules I bought were filters, so I could expand the sound of my Mini Moog Voyager. After a while, this filter and effects box grew into a full standalone modular synth with oscillators, LFOs, etc. In autumn 2014, I began working on my first release as Modtech. Prior to this, I was producing minimal techno under another alias, but wanted something faster paced which I could play and record live. like techno producers in the early 90s were doing. In February 2016 I did my first live modular performance at a rave in Antwerp. After each gig and during the rehearsals I kept fine-tuning the selection of modules in my rig to maximize flexibility and performance. More on my live rig and how I play in a future episode. First, let's go through the basics and build a simple modular. If you're into synths, a lot of this will make sense and sound familiar. A lot of recent synths have an interface that lets you connect them to modular gear. This is done via pitch, CV and gate. CV stands for control voltage and the pitch CV out is normally fed into the pitch CV input of an oscillator, but can be fed into any input you like. If you connect a keyboard to this pitch input, it will track the note intervals you play, but you want to make sure you tune the oscillator to the corresponding note first. An oscillator gives you a constant output, so you want some kind of way to silence this sound and let it only play when you hit a key. This is done by an envelope generator, which is triggered by a gate signal and opens up the amplifier to which the audio from the oscillator is fed into. The speed at which the envelope opens is described by the attack rate. The decay, on the other hand, is the speed of the drop in volume after the attack reached full volume. On more complex envelope generators you have a sustain, which keeps the sound at a dialed in volume when you keep the note pressed in after the decay. And there's also the release that sets the length the note will fade away when you release the note you pressed, hence the name release. The mixer lets you mix signals like the individual wave shapes of the oscillator or multiple oscillators. A mixer can also mix control voltages. The filter gives character to the sound of the synth and can be shaped by an envelope generator or an LFO, which stands for low frequency oscillator. It's an oscillator oscillating at such low frequency it will become inaudible, and depending on the wave shape and the way you connect it, its most well-known way of use is to get a vibrato or tremolo effect, but as with any other module you can connect it in any way you want. This is the main attraction of modular synth. The routing capabilities are unlimited and happy accidents frequently happen. A great way to get into modular synths is to buy a synth voice module. This is a module containing the most basic attributes you need and is a little semi-modular synth on its own. You can easily expand upon this synth voice with a plethora of other modules, be it more oscillators, filters, etc. Some nice ones that come to mind are the Moog Mother 32, the IntelliGel Atlantis, Make Noise O-Coast and Pittsburgh Modular Lifeforms. Some have the option to come with a case, but if you want to expand, you could buy them without a case and put them in a bigger case that can house your future modules. Speaking of cases, you can buy them in various sizes or build them yourself. The Tip-Top Happy Ending kit is a good place to start without the danger of electrocuting yourself or doing your modules harm. The Eurorack modules are 3 units high. There are also tiles, which are 1 unit high. The width of Eurorack modules is measured in HP. I'll put a list of basic modules in the description down below to get you started at a reasonable price. I made a few modular systems on Modular Grid, a great site to prepare and lay out your modular synth. These systems I made range from very small insert-like rigs to fully capable modular synths. All modules are Doepfer ones, just to keep it clean and simple. Let's have a look. Let me start with the cheapest solution. We will use these modules as insert effects. So if you have a sound card or a synthesizer, you can route insert cable to this 1/4" jack, and then the outputs and the inputs from the insert cable will go to the 3.5" jacks, the mini jacks, which you can connect to the audio in and outputs of the low pass filter with frequency CV control, audio level and emphasis or resonance, the analog distortion, and a spring reverb. With the spring reverb you should take into account that it really comes with an analog spring tank and you will need the room. Then we're going to take a look at the mini synthesizer voice. It has a VCO, a VCF, a VCA and an ADSR, and also 2 LFOs, which can modulate things, can patch some in and outputs together. You can send CV, pitch, CV and gate input signals in, and of course you can always expand with other modules. Then we have the same mini synthesizer voice with VCO, VCF, VCA, ADSR and 2 LFOs, but we added a MIDI CV converter. It accepts MIDI DIN in and USB MIDI in. It has a gate, a glide, a pitch control and some other controls. Then we added this I/O strip in which you can plug in 1/4 inch insert cable and connect the in and the outputs to the corresponding outputs on the mini synthesizer voice. Then let's take a look at a bigger system. This is a fully capable synthesizer. It has the same interface like our mini synthesizer voice. We have a voltage controlled delayed LFO, handy to add vibrato or some other filter sweeps perhaps, so to extend the capabilities of the synthesizer. A simple but very effective voltage controlled low frequency oscillator. Very important to have some multiples. When you have a pitch and you want to route it to both VCOs, you will have to use this multiple. We have 2 standard VCOs, a noise and random voltage module, which is great to add some noise to the patch or control some random CV signals. These random CV signals, you can send them everywhere. Everything that accepts CV in, you can send them to, and it will randomize voltages. We have the mixer. It's a linear mixer, great for mixing audio signals. It has 4 inputs, so you can put different wave shapes from one VCO or both VCOs in there, and then the output goes to the low pass filter, which has some feedback control, CV control, and it will be triggered and controlled by the envelope generator. And then we also have an envelope generator for the exponential VCA, which of course is needed in a synthesizer. And then the same I/O. If we expand on that system, we just add a row with some more tools, like a wave multiplier, adding some distortion or shaping the waves of the synthesizer. We can add a second filter, maybe use it in conjunction with low pass filter as a high pass filter like you would do on an MS-20, or you can just use only the SEM filter I chose here. Then you have a voltage controlled bit modifier, great for adding some lo-fi effects. I have added a USB power strip, great for adding a light if you're doing it in the dark. You can connect an external keyboard that is USB powered, like the Keith Macmillan Q Nexus perhaps. It has pitch CV out and gate out. Then we have a joystick, a loop processor, an offset and attenuator, which is great for changing voltages, controlling voltages. Then an AND or dual logic module, a sequential switch, which is great to feed it with a clock signal or an LFO and then route different kind of signals, be it audio or CV. We have a ring modulator, 2 of them. We have a random sample and hold, a precision adder, which is great to create quick intervals or other CV related controlling. This system is a little bit more complex in the way you can control the voltages And last but not least, let's take a look at a 3-story high unit or a 9-rack unit high 84 HP wide synthesizer with the same modules as in our 2 first full synthesizer box, and we add on to this an analog and trigger sequencer from Doepfer with a sequencer controller to have more control over what you can do with that sequencer, and then a dual quantizer and some switched multiples. With the sequencer you can really do some old school and very rhythmic sequencing, and it really expands the system. It will become a tool at its own. With the sequencer you don't need an external keyboard. You can add an external keyboard and maybe use a precision adder to add both pitch CVs from the sequencer and from the keyboard together, so you can transpose and do other nice things. This is not the least expensive system, but it's a great starting point. You can use whatever modules from whatever brands you want with this system, no problem at all. I just chose the Doepfer ones because it's a very coherent look and they're affordable, very affordable modules. They do mostly one particular job, they do it well, but you can of course save some room and buy some exotic modules which have a lot of these elements built into one rather small module. In that way you can save a little bit space, maybe keep some space for future use. But one advice: if you start out with a case that's not too little. You can buy blanking plates to cover those buses in order to prevent damage to yourself or your modules, and you can remove those blanking panels when you buy more modules. I think that would be a great start. Do you have any questions about modular synths or have suggestions on modules? Please put them in the comment section below. More videos will follow soon, so if you're new to the channel, please feel free to hit that bell button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.